and leaders of our church as we journey through topics that inform, engage, and inspire the daily life of our church.
Welcome and thanks for joining us for the Roundtable with Pulaski Heights United Methodist Church, a podcast of discussions with substance. Today we are going to be talking about the Advent season, and so we are so thankful to have you joining us. I am Kathleen McMurray. I am the pastor of Connecting Ministries here at Pulaski Heights.
And I'm John Robbins, one of the pastors on staff.
And I'm Jay Clark, one of the pastors on staff.
I'm Abbey Maynard. I'm the pastor of Community Ministries.
So I guess today our first question would be, what makes the Advent season special? Why do you think ordinary folks should care about it? It's a liturgical season. Christmas is the thing that's in all the stores. Why does Advent matter?
It all goes back to the elf on the shelf.
Okay.
I really don't I don't know why that came to mind. I'm horrible at it as a parent. But anyway, that has nothing to do with this. Why does
Advent matter?
Why does Advent matter?
I think it's a time of great anticipation and expectation. There's momentum that builds. Everybody gets excited about Christmas and all the things that go into that. And I think the church taps into that. And we try to exploit the strengths of the church, particularly that time of year, in celebrating the great joy of the anticipation of the birth of the Christ child into the world and what that means for all of us. And so, of course, Advent means coming, and it's a time to really focus on what it means to be a people who anticipate the coming of Christ into the world. So I think it's not only something that's beneficial for people just in general that time of year to be able to get together and enjoy one another's company, but we really try to stress that and what that means in the life of the church as well. So it's an exciting time. It's a joy-filled time, and I think we try to do our part to make sure that happens for people in lots of ways.
I also think it's, Christmas and the birth of the Christ child didn't just happen out of the blue. There was preparation that went into it, and we need some kind of preparation to get the real effect of what we're celebrating at Christmas. We need that time to think about, all that goes into it and all that it means for us. And so it's our opportunity to get to prepare ourselves for really the magnitude of what we're getting ready to celebrate.
And adding to that, I think that the piece that we always emphasize is that waiting piece. And most of us are not very patient people.
Well,
no offense, John.
Yeah, I was going to say. Thank you very much, Jay.
But I mean, so it's that intentional slowing down, and the church really is the only place that people are going to get that.
Yes.
And I do also think one of the great things about Christmas time or Advent leading up to Christmas is singing all the hymns that are familiar to most everybody. We don't sing a lot of those hymns any other time of the year, and people expect that, and there's a level of excitement that seems to be generated, maybe more so that time of the year than any other time.
Yeah. I also love about Advent, as we think about, this build up to Christ's coming and what that means for us, that recognition that Jesus is coming, that this transformation of the world is coming, and it's not here yet, and also just kind of wrestling and recognizing that now and not yet part of theology,
right.
And recognizing like there is hurt in the world, but what does hope mean? Like that resilient hope, I guess, is what I love a lot about the Advent season. So we've already talked a little bit about music and singing songs, but what other traditions stick out to you during this time of waiting?
My family always did an Advent wreath. We had it on our kitchen table, and so we would light it at dinner time. And so that, for me, is one of the first things that comes to mind when it's Advent season coming up is where is my Advent wreath? And that childhood memory of getting to light those candles and think about what they mean.
I always think about Christmas Eve, actually, because I think that's very much a tradition for those of us who are clergy every year in the life of the church, but also the joy on the faces of those who come to any of the services on Christmas Eve, whether it's the little children running around, or elderly people, and everybody in between. There's just this level of joy that, quite frankly, we don't really experience any other time of the year. People tend to be in a really good mood, and they want to be there on Christmas Eve, and there are lots and lots of people, and there's a level of energy and excitement oftentimes that we don't experience the rest of the year. And there is an expectation on the part of the people who are there to be able to have some kind of experience, which I always appreciate at Christmas, the tradition families have of being there. Quite frankly, even if they're not there other times of the year, there's something about being together on Christmas Eve that is so sacred and holy, even those who don't necessarily believe that the rest of the year see that as important on Christmas Eve.
I think there are a lot of traditions that Christmas Eve is a huge tradition here at this church, but Christmas also makes me reflect on past Christmases, especially Christmases growing up as a child, being around people who are no longer here with us. It makes me, to smell something. Cooking reminds me of my grandmother's cooking, or just things like that. And they were all people that are very, very much a part of my faith and my faith journey.
Sure.
And it I don't know. There's something about that reflection during, that is of what traditions we may have had as a child.
I love the traditions, and this is somewhat, it is in the church, but just the tradition of decorating.
You're right.
And that process, some churches have, previous churches that I've served have had like a hanging of the greens worship experience. But that idea that like we're getting ready by this decorating. And so whether it is decorating at home, and, I remember my family we'd always get together, and, everybody would hang the Christmas ornaments on the tree together. And, who's going to get to hang that angel on the top of the tree was just so fun. And still today, it warms my heart. My parents live in town, and so sometimes, the last couple of years I've gone over to their house, and we've helped to decorate their Christmas tree, and it's just a beautiful thing. And so I love seeing those visible signs of everything popping up. And last year, putting up, I don't remember how many, 19 Christmas trees that we had on the stage at Wesley Hall. That was so fun. But seeing the trees, seeing the wreaths, that just visible sign of something is changing and coming.
I wonder if Pulaski Heights ever had a huge Christmas tree in the sanctuary. I don't even know if that's still a deal.
I don't know. I've had it in previous churches.
I've had it at previous churches.
With the little booklet that explains every Christmas. And
Well, this year for our family Christmas Eve service, we're going to do more, the ornament tree is going to be more of a Christmas tree.
Right.
More to come about that later. But we're excited about that. But yeah, I love that visual signs of the coming of Christmas. So this is a submitted question. In Catholicism, Mary is talked about a lot, especially during this time. Do United Methodists not revere her in the same way? So how do Methodists view Mary?
Well, I think we revere Mary, maybe not the same way the Roman Catholics do. We don't pray to Mary. However, we do see her, if you will, as the Mother of God, and the extraordinary role she plays and the responsibility she has of nurturing, caring for, and rearing the Savior of the world. So she's a very integral and important figure in, I think, all Christian traditions. But we view her, if you will, a little bit differently from the Roman Catholics. But she is not something or someone we dismiss. She is somebody who is very important to us in this whole birth experience.
Yeah. Y'all know, and some of our listeners may know, but I grew up, my dad's Roman Catholic,
right.
And so grew up in both of those traditions, and loved, learning about Mary, and I just found it so fascinating that in a denomination where I could not be ordained in that denomination, but they have such a reverence for Mary, for the Mother of God, and Ellen has mentioned Mary as kind of this beautiful example of the holy yes that we say to God, just a really powerful example of that holy yes, bearing Christ into the world, and the fact that, we knew he was born as a baby and grew up. So she would have had an influence on his life.
Yes, clearly.
As a mother.
And she must have been an extraordinary person anyway, because the chances are she was very young. She obviously was completely inexperienced when it came to having children. And yet there was a quality about her, clearly, that God saw in her that made her unique and special, and, if you will, one of a kind.
Right.
So.
Right. So we view Mary differently in answer to our submitted question, but we definitely have incredible reverence for her. So during the Advent season, we often see themes of hope, peace, joy, and love. We have these 4 weeks of Advent, and oftentimes those are kind of the themes that go for those 4 weeks. Why do you think that may speak to us in a particularly special way in our climate today?
Because I don't think we hear about it enough. I don't think we see it enough. And we have to remind ourselves repeatedly that there is hope and joy and love and peace in what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. We can't stress that enough, because those are 4 qualities or 4 experiences that all human beings long for. And I think we just have to stress that all the more, because there seems to be, if we're not careful, so much darkness in the world that we can become transfixed on. We have to remind ourselves to whom it is we belong and what it is that Christ offers us, particularly this time of year.
Yeah, I feel like the things that we get from the world are the exact opposite. We turn on the news and we see despair and disaster all the time. We see, so many things are going on, nothing ever seems to calm down, and it's all of these negative things. And so I think this is a time for the church especially to be a reminder that those things do still exist in the world, and in particular they exist in this place where we can experience them because of God's love. And I think that is a really powerful thing when the world can be so discouraging, that we have intentional time to focus on these qualities.
Do you all gravitate toward one of those more than the other?
I think for me, it's always about hope.
Yeah.
It's always about hope, because it's easy for me, just personally speaking, sometimes to become hopeless or feel a sense of hopelessness about our world and where we're headed, and the lack of regard and respect for other human beings just in general. I've just got to remind myself, what would it be like outside a relationship with Jesus Christ? There is no hope. And even sometimes when I can't see that light shining, I have to rely on the fact that there is hope out there, because if there's not, we're all hopeless anyway.
I think I'm drawn toward joy, but I think it's selfish, because when I was a little kid, I would go into these fellowship hall churches and they'd have the banners up for Christmas, and I'd say, why did they make a banner for me? Hope, peace, joy, and love.
J and love, yes, exactly. Close. Why?
I was
how
just
nice.
Wow, that's so kind.
Yeah. Well, that you're deeply loved. It's an indication that how deeply you are loved.
That's right.
Well, I'm with you, John. I think that, hope. For me, there are so many people and so many organizations around the world that are working to combat the darkness, that are working towards peace, that are working to share love and to show love. Lots of organizations, lots of people, lots of individuals working towards those things. But I think what sets us apart from other organizations is the hope that we have that our work, that the transformation of the world, that the light and the darkness, it is not all on us.
Right. And it's not an effort in futility.
And it is not an effort in futility.
Right.
I mean, I think, how hard it would be to be working towards peace on earth if you are not a person of faith.
Right.
That we have a hope that is greater than us. And that, again, I just see so much in the world that would make us hopeless. But that hope is a resilience that we hold on to, that I definitely think speaks into our climate today. Well, that is our conversation for today. We will be back again next week talking more about Advent. And so we appreciate you joining us for this roundtable discussion here at Pulaski Heights United Methodist Church, a podcast of discussions with substance. We look forward to visiting with you again next week.